My name's R.A. Paulsgrove, but you can call me River. I am an author. I write about my trauma. I write about vampires and werewolves and zombies, and I use all that as like therapy stuff, and then I publish it. Anyways, so I was also a bigot, emphasis on was, not currently. I made another video talking about what happened and why I fell into certain beliefs. And this video, and I'm probably going to turn it all into a playlist at some point, so it'll all be in one spot. But go watch that video before you continue with this one, because it will provide a lot of important context. All right. This video is going to focus on my transition from high school to college and where and why my thinking changed from I'm genuinely concerned about my friends to I just want to look like a super spiritual Christian. So, to give a little bit of context here, I went to a creepy cult school, went from ages 2 to 18. It was a Montessori school. And if you know anything about Montessori, it's a curriculum, like a teaching method for mostly young kids. Maria Montessori died before she could make a curriculum for high schoolers. So there's no curriculum for high schoolers. Why did the school go from ages 2 to 18? Well, the guy in charge was a and there's more about him in the other video, so I'm not going to go too much into that. Anyways, going to the school, there were about 50 kids in total, and my graduating class was 3 people. And the way classes worked is the entire high school, which was like 10 people, would have classes together. So freshmen to seniors would all do their classes together, and it was really hard. So as I'm going through this school, I started to feel close to a lot of these students, and looking back, I don't think they felt the same way about me. Um, they weren't always the nicest. Also, the culture and environment that was in that tiny little school was so wildly unhealthy. And I was bullied a lot. And I thought, okay, yeah, I'm being bullied, but that's how I'm supposed to be treated because I was an abuse victim. And I just thought, hey, this is just how people are supposed to treat me because I'm literally garbage. I was so pathetic. I literally thought my bullies were my friends. I don't even, that is so sad and pathetic. Wow. Anyways, there were a few people who I think genuinely cared about me. And so around high school, I really got into religion because I was constantly being told that I was an ungrateful, horrible person. I should be more grateful to my ex-mother, Melody. I refer to her as my ex-mother because she was insanely abusive. Again, more on that in my previous video, so go watch that. And I wanted to prove them wrong. I didn't want to be this horrible, ungrateful person that they said I was. So then the church comes along and is like, hey, you're a sinner, you're terrible. And it's like, yeah, I know. And it's like, but you can be redeemed. And it's like, oh, really? That's all I've ever wanted. So you see where this is going. Going to church, it was very fundamentalist. And they told me that because I was the only real Christian at that school, that I was the only one who could stop my friends from going to hell. And they told me that hell was like so terrible. And I ended up getting serious panic attacks because I was so afraid of these people who I cared about going to hell. One of the people at the school that I felt close to was LGBTQ. We're going to call her Sam. Not like my character Sam, like a made up fake name for a real person, Sam, okay? And Sam was a girl, and she had a crush on me. I was so torn. Because here's the things that I cared about her back in that way, but I was always told that being LGBTQ, dating same sex was a serious, serious sin. But then I had the kids telling me that, oh, I was a bigot if I didn't date her. So I said yes. And I don't know, I said yes because I was lonely, I was sad, I wanted it. And I was also afraid because the students kept calling me a bigot and that I was bad and all this stuff. So I dated her for a few months. I don't remember a lot from that time. Like, it was just a complete blackout. The only thing I really remember from that time was a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety, and I ended up breaking up with her because I was afraid of going to hell, and I was afraid of her going to hell. And I just remember I got pushy with a lot of people, like, really pushy. Like, I brought my friends to church, and I felt so good because, like, oh my God, I'm bringing people to Jesus. And I kind of liked the idea that people saw me with this group of friends at church. And I don't know, it just, I had this fantasy in my head, a really vivid fantasy of all my friends converting and we were all happy and then we'd just end up together in heaven and everything would be perfect. And that's not how that went. I ended up hurting some of them a lot and I feel bad about it. I feel really bad about it. I'm still trying to work out about, like, how I feel about the fact that I dated Sam and I wanted it, but I was so afraid of hell that I just broke up. And also, how do I feel about the fact that I also dated her because I felt pressured by the other students calling me a bigot and saying horrible things to me. There's a lot to unpack with that, and I'm still processing that part of my life and that particular instance. So I'm not going to go too much more into that, but I wasn't blameless in that situation by any means. It was not healthy. So, yeah, so I got pushy with my friends and it pushed them away and it resulted in some really bad bullying. And of course, and it ended up where one night I was at my brother's house with my ex-parents, Melody and Frank, and I was on the computer downstairs and I saw some really horrible Facebook posts written about me. I just started crying and I showed my ex-parents and they told the teachers, and then the teachers yelled at the kids, and then the bullying got really, really, really bad. And that was just a really hard time in my life. So it kind of pushed me more to the church. And I even asked the people at church, like, hey, I feel like I'm hurting people. People aren't responding the way I thought they would. And the church was like, no, that's supposed to happen. They're persecuting you. Good job. Keep it up. I got, like, congratulated for being persecuted like it was a good thing. Okay, I guess. Fast forward, I start my time at College of DuPage, which is a community college in the suburbs of Chicago. It was a pretty nice campus, and I mean, it was a community college, and I was terrified because I just come out of this, like, really controlling, restrictive environment to community college. I remember I felt so out of place. So I sought out Christians to kind of, like, make myself feel more at home. So I found some Christian groups and it just it was toxic. And I thought that's just how it's supposed to be because no one else seemed to have an issue with it. So at COD, there was this group called Cru, Campus Crusade for Christ. Uh, I I didn't realize how weirdly problematic that name was. Like, because if you think about the Crusades, they were just killing people for not being Christian, and it's Campus Crusade for Christ. So it was really, really toxic. And one of the things I really did not like was how they treated this one girl. Oh, hold up. I just realized I need to go back and explain how my thinking changed. So I'm in this new campus ministry thing, and I was like, okay, I have to prove to them what a good Christian I am. I have to prove it. So I would do the evangelizing with them. Like, we'd walk around campus and talk to people about Jesus and be really obnoxious. And again, people were not responding well to this, understandably so. And I didn't understand, but everyone kept saying, this is how you're supposed to do it. I'm not gonna lie, it did feel good sometimes when I would go up to people and start talking about Jesus, and the people would look at me and they'd be like, and they'd look at me with like admiration, like, wow, you're so brave. Mm. No, I wasn't brave. I was trying to prove myself. But I did like the attention. I liked feeling superior. And that wasn't good. That was really bad. So it went from I care about these people, I have an emotional attachment to these people, to I'm trying to impress these other people. And that was really, really, really bad. It was really bad. I started having a lot of doubts though. Once I saw how they treated this other girl in crew, she had some very severe developmental disabilities. We're going to call her um, Nikki. Let's call her Nikki. Nikki had some very severe mental health issues. And I'm not going to get too much into that, but it was really bad. And a lot of the crew girls were not the nicest to her. They would dismiss her, they would exclude her, and she would lash out sometimes. And they started treating her like a child. Like, it just felt like the way that they handled the situation felt very infantilizing to her. And I understand she had a lot of developmental disabilities, but also she was an adult. Okay, she was an adult, and even if she had developmental disabilities, she still deserved to be treated with dignity and respect, which they did not do. And the heartbreaking thing is that she would defend them. So I remember I was talking with her one time in the cafeteria, and she looks at me with this big smile on her face, like, I want to be mean like the crew girls. And I, it was so bluntly said. And that really had me start to question, like, what are we actually doing here? So then I switched to this other campus group. I forget what it was called, but it was basically part of a cult. It was ICOC, International Church of Christ. And these people are like a legit cult, like legit. Now, these people were nuts. Nuts. Oh my God. Holy mother of. These people were not okay. Where to even begin? So they had a very us versus them mentality. They would refer to anyone outside of ICOC as worldly. I remember I was talking with this one girl, and she was talking to me about how proud she was of the boys, where they were all out on this outing, and then she said a worldly girl walks past them with a short skirt, and they all just looked away. Look how pure I am. I'm looking away from someone in like yoga pants. Okay. It was, I don't even know how to begin to unpack the ridiculousness. Good for them for not looking at a person. Also, like, so yeah, very much us versus them. And there was a lot of, well, this is how you're supposed to be. And they were very big on gender roles. They had this thing called encouragement dates, where basically, if you wanted to date someone, you would ask them out, and then you'd ask a friend to basically third wheel and chaperone. You guys have no idea how badly I wanted an encouragement date. Some of these guys there, they were nice looking. But look, I was really lonely and desperate, and I wanted to feel wanted. I wanted to feel desired. And so I tried to amp up my Christian game and kept doing that, like kept doing volunteer stuff, talking to people about Jesus, and being pushy and very showy. And it just, I started to feel, I guess, a weird bit of like cognitive dissonance, because these people were responding like they were hurt, like really hurt, when I would say certain things like, no, I'm trying to love you. I'm trying to show you love. And I just started asking questions. Woo, not supposed to do that. About like, is this actually working? Are we actually accomplishing what we want to accomplish? And the response was mostly, hey, if they really want to be saved, they would listen to you. So it's like, okay, I guess it's on them, which is like horrible. Oh my God, it was so bad. Anyways, I never got an encouragement date. I asked too many questions. I think that's what really turned the guys off, was asking questions. I also asked the question of, what if I marry someone who's abusive? Because this church was very old school, where the women submit to the men. Your wife, if you're a wife, you submit to your husband. And I asked a no question of, well, what if my husband is abusive? And their word for word response was, well, then just marry a real Christian. What's there to worry about? Like, so this is where I really started to feel like this was a not super great environment. But what really made me walk away from ICOC was, we had a Bible study where we basically all sat down, and the leader, I'm just going to use her real name because I can't think of a fake one, Jess. Not going to use her last name or anything, so whatever. We had this Bible study where Jess went into, well, it started out where they had me list my deepest, darkest, most disgusting, horrible sins. Like, this was really personal. This stuff was really personal. And I thought I could trust them. So I told them, I made the list, I made the confession. And then Jess starts going into this horrifically graphic description of Jesus's death on the cross, how he died. And she said stuff like, think about like the 9 cattail whip. How would that feel on your breasts? How would that feel on your genitals? Like, I was sobbing by the end of it, ugly crying, because I felt so bad. And she ended it with, you caused that. Your sin, everything you just told us, that's what put him on the cross like that. I sobbed. I was so broken, and I just walked out because I couldn't, I couldn't sit there. I felt so bad. I felt like I had personally caused a human to suffer in some of the most horrific ways. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional just talking about this. It was it was really rough. So, so I walked away from all that. And then I found Greenhouse. So at this point, I was mad at God. I felt horrible. I felt broken. And I got to a point where I was like, I just need a break. I need a break from God. I need a break from Jesus. And it's like, you know what? I'm just going to take it, because, if God actually loves me, he's going to understand. He has to, if he's this loving God that they profess him to be. So I just took a break. I didn't study the Bible. I focused on my schoolwork, and I just couldn't keep going like that. So one day I'm at the Starbucks at COD, and behind me I hear people talking about a mustard seed. And if you know anything about Christianity and the Bible, there's this thing where Jesus is like, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, blah, 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 then something mountains, you can move them. Turn around, and it was this new campus ministry called Greenhouse. So I sit with them, I talk to them, and it was actually not the worst experience I had with Christians. I was really excited because I thought, oh my gosh, hey, I can bring my friend Nikki here, and they'll treat her better. So I brought her there, and it wasn't, it was better than Cru. They treated her better than they did at Cru, but there was still some exclusion and infantilizing and all that stuff. It was really hard to see because she I could tell she was hurting. Like I identified with her a lot because we were both really really lonely and in so much pain, and we just wanted to be accepted, and these people kind of half-assed their acceptance of us, which was kind of, it hurt it all for me. It hurt more than being outright rejected. That half-ass acceptance was really hard. So I'm in this ministry and I continue to ask questions, which is not a good thing. At one point, they were going to set up a tent or a booth at this like Wiccan convention thingy. I don't know what it was, but basically they went and disguised themselves as just being spiritual. And then once people got close to their booth, they would be like, "Did you know Jesus loves you?" And it was really, I didn't realize at the time because I thought, "Oh, they're doing something good for Jesus." And it but it was actually really deceptive and horrible. But I wanted to go do this. I wanted to be like, "Hey, I want to help win people over for Jesus. I want people to feel Jesus's love." And the leader in charge, his name was Joel. He looks at me and he's like, I don't think you're in a spiritual enough place for me to allow you to come with." So I wasn't allowed to come with because I wasn't spiritually mature enough. And it's because I asked questions. They really did. No, in every church and ministry I went to, they did not like questions. That was the common factor among them all. Do not ask questions. Just praise Jesus. Oh, oh, it was bad. So one day, Greenhouse is meeting at Starbucks, and I see this girl with pink hair. And I'm thinking, yay, friend who might not fit in too. So I sit down with her, and her name is Claire. So quick side note. So in Death to the Soul, there are 3 girls, Karen, Claire, and Becky. I know, I'm so original. But anyway, these 3 girls were based on real people who really, really hurt me. And I'm going to go more into that later in this video, but I'm going to use the fake names from my books for these girls. So her name was Claire. And we became friends. She was an artist. She liked writing. I liked writing. We connected, and I felt loved by her. And then she introduced me to her 2 other friends, Karen and Becky. And again, I felt loved by these girls. Now at this point, I was like right on the edge of being done with Christianity. My home life was miserable. I was being horribly abused, and I just wanted to heal. I was also freshly single at this time. Broke up with a guy because it just didn't work out because of issues with his family. He was a great guy. Let me be clear. He was and is still a great guy. I have no ill will towards him. We're actually still friends. But it just, we didn't work as a couple. But yeah. So anyways, I could go into more detail about that in another video, but like, yeah, I'm an adult. I can be friends with an ex that wasn't a total douchebag. He was a nice guy, still is a nice guy. We had a lot more issues outside his family, but we were great friends, and that's why we're still friends. Okay? I don't know why I have to justify myself. Although no one's really asking questions, it's mostly just me being all paranoid. Anyways, back to the story. So I just got out of this relationship. I was hurting. I was lonely. I was miserable. And these girls took me in and made me feel halfway accepted. So here's the thing about these girls. These girls went to Wheaton College. If you don't know anything about Wheaton College, it's basically the Harvard for Christians. And I lived in Wheaton. Wheaton is the suburb of Chicago. It's not super small, but it has Wheaton College, and it's very Christian. It also had the most churches per square block in the world. Like, Yeah, the world beat the Vatican. So there was a very heavy Christian fundamentalist culture like everywhere in Wheaton. So these girls were at Wheaton College, and I felt like they cared about me because they put their money where their mouth was most of the time. Some nights I would have severe panic attacks and really hard nights where I'd be in tears, and these girls would let me come stay at their dorm to get a break. They didn't believe that my family was abusing me because my family knew how to put on a really good front, but it didn't matter. They let me come hang out with them, and I will forever be grateful for that. But as time went on, I realized I wasn't really one of them. I was missionary friended. I was struggling a lot in my faith. And they kept trying to like bring me back to Jesus. And again, asking questions, big no no. And I just was starting to get a lot of this resentment towards the church. And I'd say stuff like, well, the church really hurt me. And they'd get super offended, like, well, we're the church. We didn't hurt you. We're not one of those. And it's like, okay, Christians, please pick one. Is there one universal church, or are there a bunch of churches and you're not all like united? Like, pick one. This is why the Nicene Creed is so confusing. If anyone doesn't know what the Nicene Creed is, it basically goes like it's a prayer, and it's like, we are one holy Catholic meaning universal, not the like Catholic. We are one universal holy apostolic church, something something something. And it's like, okay, well, if we're all one church, like across denominations, then yeah, you're part of the church that hurt me. And it caused a lot of friction between us because they took this stuff really personally, and I was hurting a lot. Um, and I never meant like them specifically. I meant like the church. And they were like, no, we're part of the church. You're saying that we hurt you. Well, I mean, they did. Um, so I realized I wasn't really one of them when my my friend's roommate, uh, my friend's boyfriend's roommate was running at a track event. And for some reason at track events, they have hammer throwing, and someone threw a hammer at this track event and killed her boyfriend's roommate. And that was really hard on them, all of them. And I was like, I was like, okay, what can I do? And I thought, okay, so food. People who are sad eat food, and food helps. Comfort food, mac and cheese. So I made some mac and cheese, and I was gonna bring it over to them. And the girl was like, "Oh yeah, no, my boyfriend kind of just wants close friends." And I thought, okay, I guess, but I already have the mac and cheese here. What do I do with it? After some back and forth, she admitted that he didn't care if I was there. She was the one who didn't want me. Oh, that was a really painful night. I cried a lot. And eventually she kind of gave in. She's like, okay, yeah, no, bring the mac and cheese. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So I did. But I realized at that point I was not one of them, and that this was a missionary friending thing. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the term missionary dating. Basically, you date someone to convert them. It felt like I was being missionary friended. And things just kind of came to a head, and I didn't, and they just kind of left. And I still hurt over it sometimes. I thought I found a family, and it was ripped away from me, and I thought it was my fault. So, yeah, that was hard. And yeah. Ooh, fast forward to I get into a relationship, then I get out of a relationship. And actually, let's talk about this relationship. This was a relationship with a guy named Brendan. how can I describe Brendan? He had good hair. He was part of a, you know, he was part of an attempt at a Christian rock band. So yeah, I did because I liked his hair and I liked that he was into like Christian rock and everything. I was not my proudest moment, but anyways, he was super conservative, and he really believed in wives submitting to husbands. Oh God, it was. And to make a really long story short, Brendan was not the smartest. He knew he was not the smartest, but he was like, if we get married, you're gonna have to submit to me. And we somehow got engaged, and his mom freaked. His mom was like, are you gonna submit to my son? Needless to say, that did not last, broke off the engagement. And then I found my husband, my now husband, Matthew. So here's the crazy thing. Matt's a Christian. He's a Lutheran, and he's not an asshole. He's really nice. He's considerate, compassionate, and surprisingly supportive while I was leaving the church. He's still a Christian, but he doesn't push. He cares, and when I came out to him as non-binary, he again was really supportive. And I can't even begin to tell you how confused I was about all this. Like, you're a Christian, you're supposed to not be you're supposed to be mad at me, you're supposed to be lecturing me. No, actually he didn't. He didn't do any of that. And he's just always been really, really good and supportive and has helped build a life so that I can focus on my healing. So recently, he and I were talking, and I told him that I had never once heard of a church that would actually defend women or say that abuse is bad. I never found a church like that. So he goes and he looks up the LCMS something, Lutheran Center Missouri something something, and basically they had a whole training manual on how to respond when there's domestic abuse. It said, hey, this is not good. You need to believe the victim, and you are not equipped to handle this. It was just a lot of really in-depth stuff, and I was shocked. I had never seen anything like this from a Christian place. Now, this all happened really recently, and no, this does not mean I'm going back to the church. This does not mean I'm converting back to Christianity. Christianity is not something I could ever go back to for a whole host of reasons, but he was surprised that I was surprised. He was surprised that it took me by surprise. Where am I going with this point? I guess where I'm going with this is that Christianity has the potential to do a lot of harm. But Christianity, I also think, has the potential to not do harm. I don't know how much good it can do, but if you're a Christian, you don't have to be a jackass. My husband and his family are some of the nicest people I've ever met, and they are all Lutheran, and I love them to pieces. But again, I would never be able to go back to that faith or life or anything like that. I guess what I've learned is that Christianity is what you make of it. And yeah. I got caught up in some really toxic churches, and it went from I care about these people, I have an emotional connection with these people, I'm trying to save their souls, to I'm trying to prove myself, to I want to be seen as a good Christian, I want to indulge my savior complex, to this is really bad, people are not responding well. So I think I forgot to mention this, but another thing that happened with my thinking was I realized that people were actually responding as if they were hurt. And the church kept telling me, like, well, they're supposed, if they really wanted to be a Christian, if they were really sorry, they would. I mentioned all that, but like, I realized that, okay, these methods that we're using to convert people don't seem to be actually working. They don't seem to be working. Like, okay, so do we want results? Because if we want results, I think we would need to be nicer and not as judgmental and not as in your face and not constantly tell people they're going to hell. And the church was like, no, no, no. I wanted results. I wanted to love people. I wanted to do what the Bible said. But the Christians' actions showed that they would rather indulge their savior and persecution complex than try to love others. I started to look at actions rather than words, and the actions proved to me that these people were not good. They were not safe. They didn't actually care about people. They didn't care about saving people. They didn't care about it. And they didn't care about me, and they didn't care if they hurt people. Because it was an us versus them type thing, and it was horrible. I also learned that there are some good Christians out there that will embrace you and love you, but I think that if people are looking for love and acceptance, you need to be careful, especially if you go looking for it in the church. You need to be extremely careful and keep yourself safe. There's nothing wrong, I think, with being a Christian and using your faith to actually love other people. That's beautiful. But unfortunately, for a lot of Christians, a lot of churches, there's such a toxic culture of rigidity and allowing abuse. And I just want people to be careful. I don't want people to abandon their faith if it's something that they find meaningful. But if it's hurting you, and if you are hurting people, you might need to walk away. If you're a Christian and you're not hurting people, good for you. I'd imagine that would be really hard because for me, I would get a lot of pushback from the church when I asked questions or said, hey, I don't think this is right. So if you can stand up against that in the church, bravo. We need more people like that. Because at the end of the day, a lot of churches are doing serious, serious damage. I walked away from my mental health. I walked away because I could no longer believe in a God that was so harsh. I don't know what my beliefs are now in terms of like spirituality. I think there's something out there. I think there's definitely a spiritual side to this world. I don't know what it is. I don't think we're meant to know what it is. But I think whatever you do with your religion, with your faith, with whatever you believe, please do it. Please use it to put good into the world. Use it to help people. Use it to be a good person. Don't use it to feed some bullshit superiority complex or persecution complex or savior complex. Just don't. Do you want results or do you want to feel superior? If the answer is you want to feel superior, then by all means, keep being an asshole. Okay. Oh, damn, this has gone on really long. All right. I'm going to end this here. Thank you for listening. And yeah. Okay. Bye, guys.